Welcome back to The Rewind. I'm your host, Spencer Tracy. It is great to be back here for episode 37, man. You guys have been doing great on the socials with my last episode with the news. But we got a fun one today. We're doing something we haven't done on the Rewind yet. We are talking about college baseball as we get past the regionals and we get into super regionals, one step closer for some of these clubs to get to the College World Series. We'll dig into all of that. But first, let me introduce you to my now colleague, but my guest as well. Phillip Hall. He's called JUCO baseball and softball over the years. He's called collegiate men's and women's basketball over the years. He is coming off a fall and spring of calling Cal men's soccer play-by-play. He's also done a handful of sports for Stanford, such as men's soccer, women's volleyball, even college baseball, which we're going to dig into. But out of all those, the most important one is entering his second summer as the play-by-play broadcaster for the Menlo Park Legends summer collegiate team. Everybody, Phillip Hall, also known as Phillip Hall on the Call. Welcome to the Rewind, my friend.
How's it going, Spencer? Yeah, thank you again for having me, dude. I mean, very excited to be on the Rewind. Love the project you have going for you, man. 37 episodes, man. It's quite a run
Fine.
so far for sure.
Fine.
But yeah, it's definitely been a fun time being a broadcaster, especially for this year. I think 2026 has been a really good year for me for the sports I've been able to cover, especially baseball. Broadcasting a lot of baseball down at Stanford, even in the East Bay with Cal. So excited to get into it. I've been keeping up with the NCAA regionals, and yeah, folks, if you're not up to college baseball, I mean, you're sleeping under a rock because there are some stars you need to watch out for, and some teams you need to keep tabs on.
It's getting more and more exciting. People who only strictly watch Major League Baseball, you guys know the trend of prospects. I think there's been about almost half the first round that was taken in the 2024 draft have already registered their first big league strikeout or first big league hit. Like the prospects are coming up. It's no longer the narrative. You're sitting there for multiple years, maybe out of high school, right? That's a different story. But even guys out of high school, Connor Griffin is hitting great. He had 300 this month. So, and it all starts at the college level, right? I mean, you look back at these stars like Trevor Bauer at UCLA. You look back at Buster Posey at FSU, Brandon Crawford, UCLA. I'm going to my hometown guys, but it's really cool to watch these guys start from the beginning. A lot of basketball fans feel the same way with college basketball, but yeah, we're going to dive into some College World Series, before we get into everything, we're going to talk about how everything works. So don't feel like you're behind on the eight ball or anything. We're going to talk about why we should watch college baseball, explaining the bracket. Philip's going to give us a great deep dive into explaining the bracket. We're going to play a fun little blind rankings game. We're going to talk some underdogs, comparing some MLB teams, some favorites to make it to the College World Series, and then we'll finish off with some prospects. As I know we have a lot of Giants fans as some of my audience. So we'll be talking. They have the number 4 pick coming into this year's draft. First, Phillip, let's get into the goods here. College baseball has not been super popular over the last decade, but it's starting to gain traction due to they're kids. Like, it's same thing with college football. It's an electric environment. It's a lot of runs scoring. It's a lot of pitchers are throwing hard. They're showing emotion on the mound after big strikeouts. But why should people start tuning into college baseball now, especially with there being a road to the College World Series, but in the future as well?
Yeah, for someone that's watched college baseball at all levels from JUCO, D3, D2, D1, even some NAI here and there, you know, college baseball is like just so unique. It brings excitement night in and night out, and it's not so much guys that are playing for the name on the back; they're playing for the name on the front. It's just so much pride that's brought into the schools that they're playing for, and even the kind of brotherhood that these college programs have. And it's just all about wins. It's about bragging rights against your rivals. And even for most of these guys on the team, you're gonna find a handful of them not even making it to Pro Bowl. There's only, so many future major leaguers, or even so many pro prospects that you'll see on a college team. It doesn't matter if as a guy playing for a Power Four school, a high or low mid major, even a small conference school. There's gonna be somebody out there that's a worth the watch. And for me, speaking for someone that's seen college baseball at all different levels. And for when I was a student at St. John's, being in the Big East Conference, more known for basketball, but the baseball side in a way has gotten overlooked. And, St. John's, I consider them to be a Northeast powerhouse because historically in the past, like you go back to the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, St. John's would make runs to the College World Series. Like, still to this day, like they hold the all-time record for most conference championships in the Big East. Or, me being from the West Coast, we've always known Stanford as the big time college baseball program here in the Bay Area. Stanford, they have like the two national championships in the 80s. Mark Marquis, who passed away, just recently. He was the longtime head coach there. Now it's David Esker, who actually coached both at Stanford and Cal and has been successful at having both Cal and Stanford be successful programs, especially in the days when the Pac-12 was, like pretty much a mainstay in college sports. But now both these teams being the ACC, they're looking at a whole different beast because, you look at the regional bracket, this year, the ACC in a way was considered the top college baseball conference in the country. Top 25s, most of the teams come from the ACC. But if you look at a major league equivalent to conference in college baseball, it's historically has always been the SEC. Like the SEC, you're looking at guys that are guaranteed first round picks, future major leaguers, and even in a way, just the overall fan atmosphere you get at those games down south. Like it's crazy to me how loyal and how passionate the fan bases in the SEC are.
You look at those first round mocks and you got, the Tennessees in there. You got the
Mhm,
Ole Misses, the A&Ms have made some runs. Florida's made some runs. Bama's got a good team this year. It's stacked, but we've had a couple teams this year who broke their regionals streaks. I think Vanderbilt was a team this year that didn't make it
mhm.
for the first time in almost 2 decades, close to 2 decades, right?
Yeah, and even the reigning national championships,
Yeah,
national champions, LSU. Yeah, they missed out on the postseason play this year,
right.
surprisingly.
And it's I would say it's pretty similar to the, March Madness bracket for basketball, where
Mhm,
you get a couple teams who may not make their Cinderella run into the College World Series group of 8, but there's a good amount of teams, like, we have Little Rock who made a trip who punched their ticket the other day to the Super Regional, so they're one step closer to the College World Series. So you still get those Cinderella teams, because like you said, we'll get into it, but you need to win 3 games, you know? It's baseball at the end of the day. That's why we play the games. Anyone can win any day of the week. You see a lot of upsets, and it's tough to get that, and it really goes into the depth of these rosters, that these, coaches make. So, yeah, excellent points. It's exciting. It's metal bats. Kids are hitting the crap out of the ball. I think another really cool aspect of baseball too, or collegiate baseball, is two-way players.
mhm.
I think of guys like Casey Schmidt. He was a closer at San Diego State, and he just had a really good arm because he was playing third base for San Diego State. But he had a really good arm, so he'd come in and he would close games. And I think he closed a significant amount of games as well there. Jack Caglione was also a pitcher, outfielder out of Florida. I mean, he was known for hitting the ball almost 500 feet, but he had a rocket arm, and so they threw him on the bump as well.
I think in college baseball, you really see full talent shine because what's so different now, especially with college sports being in the NIL and transfer portal era, you're seeing guys coming from small schools going to big time schools where like their talent really does transfer well depending on where they go. But also, I feel like if baseball was, more or college baseball was more respected in America in the United States, I think we probably could have had our first two-way player in the modern era before Shohei Ohtani came in because Paul Skeens, before he became the star that he was at LSU, he was playing at Air Force, and he was a two-way player there and a good one at that too. But again, transfer portal came through, saw an opportunity to play at LSU, probably for more money, probably for more of a higher competition level, since the Mountain West isn't really as competitive to the SEC. I think there was something that we could have seen from Paul Skeens in his full potential. But the beautiful thing about the NCAA regionals, especially when you see these teams coming from the mid majors and the small conferences, like you really get to see teams that are going to play a different kind of baseball. I break it down to where, you have teams that are producing sluggers, teams that are producing like future aces, like defensively sound teams, and also teams that play a whole lot of small ball in regards to how they win games. But it just comes down to what a coach wants to specialize in when they're recruiting, as well as also and when they're trying to compete.
Would you say that how programs and schools, their play style, does that have a correlation with how big the school is? Like you see small markets like the Brewers, the Guardians, and the Rays. They're bunting for hits, they're bunting guys over, they're doing safety squeezes. Whereas big markets like the Dodgers and the Yankees, they want to hit, hundreds of home runs. They want multiple 30 plus home run guys. Is that similar to college baseball that you've experienced, or is that how do you see that? Does that match up?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think like every program has their reputation for the kind of players that they produce. Like, I could break it down for you here. You look at, programs that are offensive juggernauts. So say in the example, like to kind of keep it based around teams that made it to the tournament this year. Slugger U has always been programs like Georgia Tech, Georgia, Arizona State, and these were teams that were top 10 in the country this year in total home runs and slugging percentage in 2026. And like Georgia Tech, they produced notable sluggers like Mark Teixeira, Nomar Garcia Parra came out of there, Jason Varitek. Arizona State, they like historically, the guys that have came out there like Barry Bonds, Reggie Jackson, and even the modern day guys like Spencer Torkelson, who, of course is a power hitter on the Tigers. Those are the kind of guys that have been recruited to play there. Like if you want to go to a school like Georgia Tech, Georgia, or Arizona State, like you got to be knocking the ball over the fence, or even at least hit the ball hard in the gaps. And then you have your pitching focused programs like, as aces galore when it comes to the draft, like, UCLA, USC, Vandy, North Carolina, and Texas. Historically, they've produced, the top, like some of the best pitchers in the game. Like UCLA, of course, had those runs with Garrett Cole and Trevor Bauer. And then USC, they have three Hall of Fame pitchers from Randy Johnson, Don Sutton, Tom Seaver, and then Texas, Roger Clemens and Greg Swindell, big names historically have come out of there. And then you just have teams that want to dial in heavily on defense like Nebraska, Tennessee, and Oregon. Nebraska has produced two big time Gold Glovers. Alex Gordon, who played for the Royals in the 2000s and 2010s, he came out of Nebraska. He had Darren Erstad, center fielder, long time for the Angels, was a three-time Gold Glover. Todd Helton won some Gold Gloves playing at Tennessee. So all these programs have some kind of reputation to their name for the kind of players that they're trying to produce, and it seems like they've stuck to a moral code, like whenever it came to a coaching change, that these are the kind of guys I'm looking for. These are the kind of guys that are going to help me win games.
A lot of those alumni, I never registered where they played at college, and it's kind of funny. Some of these guys, these big schools, they've been doing it for decades. That's why they have the ability to do they have all these resources. Let's talk about the bracket. That is the hot topic right now. Philip, we talked a little bit before we hit the record button. The bracket at first glance is a lot. There's a lot of squares, there's a lot of teams. There's no simple bracket with two sides. You have team 1, team 2 play each other. They play the winner of team 3 and 4. It's not as simple as that, but it kind of is. What could you break down the road to the College World Series for us?
It really starts with the beginning. At this point, pretty much every conference has a conference tournament of some sort, and depending on the conference and depending on where you are in your rankings, like if you're a team, say from the Sun Belt, that's the top 25 most of the year, and you win your conference regular season championship, a team can still knock you out, and like from making it to the regionals. So you're really playing for to be in the top 16 because that's how it all comes down to. If you're a top 16 team in the country at the end of your conference tournament, regardless if you win or lose, like that still allows you to be a host. So this is where the field of 64 comes into play. Top 16 teams are the host sites, and then it comes down to you know who has the better records. Like because each regional is separated amongst 4 teams total. So if you're conference regular season champion in a Power Four, you get an automatic bid. If you won your conference tournament, regardless you're playing in a Power Four, mid major or small, you're an automatic qualifier. Like if you are able to upset the winner in your conference in the conference tournament, like that really shows a lot in the team because it just comes down to gritty play and comes down to being able to have that fight. And a lot of these teams have the fight, especially the small conference teams. So field breaks down, it gets separated to 64 teams, and then it goes into a double elimination format. So again, it just comes down to getting those 3 wins. The 3 wins is super important because if you lose 2, you're done. So it's like trying to sweep a team in Major League Baseball.
Right, and then break down so for example, UCLA was the number 1 seed overall, so obviously they would get their
Right.
own regional, but other teams got their own regional. But, for example, in that region, they had Virginia Tech. It was a little bit of an outlier there, but you also have, like, Cal Poly and St. Mary's, which goes to these smaller schools playing teams like UCLA, who have a couple guys going in the first round of the draft, right?
Mhm.
So break down how those 4 teams kind of play each other.
The regional that UCLA hosted, this was probably the most shocking result of all the regionals that happen in college baseball, for this tournament so far. Because, like UCLA, of course, everybody had their eyes on them because not only were they the top seed, but they also have the projected consensus first overall pick in this year's draft and Rock Chalowski, who's projected to go first overall to the White Sox. But unfortunately, as we speak now, UCLA has been eliminated because teams like St. Mary's and Cal Poly, wanted to, get a win. St. Mary's West Coast Conference, again, a mid-major, but the West Coast Conference has produced great baseball teams over the years. St. Mary's would play a team like UCLA, like going back to the regular season when I talk about these midweek matchups, teams like St. Mary's and Cal Poly would play teams like UCLA in the midweek with a chance to upset them. At least giving them a boost to their resume, even though resume wins doesn't matter as much in college baseball like it would in college basketball, only because of strength and schedule and how many games are being played. So it's not like, oh, if Cal Poly beats UCLA or if St. Mary's beats UCLA once, that's going to help them get to the tournament. No, they still have to win their conference tournament outright to automatically qualify. But the St. Mary's and UCLA battles, like I really think that for St. Mary's to win those games, to knock off UCLA the way that they did, it came down to their gritty play and the small ball play, as well as also the pitching, because UCLA had a high stud lineup up and down the order. But at the same time, in this kind of situation where St. Mary's were trying to go for 3 wins, or like how Cal Poly were trying to go for 3 wins, the pitching and the defensive play and the small ball play really comes into play because St. Mary's aren't recruiting sluggers. They're recruiting guys that are going to, pretty much play a gritty style form of baseball in a situation like this one.
Right off the bat, they became the first team in history to beat the 1 seed in the 1 seed's first game of a regional. It's like you said, St. Mary's, they won 3-2. That's a low scoring, defensive game, runs coming out of premium, moving guys over strategically. And then they beat St. Mary's again, or they beat UCLA again. You win your conference tournament, you punch your ticket, you get into these four games that we just talked about, like the LA regional, Atlanta, all these different regionals. You win the three games before two losses. Philip, you're smelling the College World Series now. You advance. Some of these teams have already advanced. What is the next step to get to the College World Series after that?
Yeah, so right after the Field of 64 gets set, regionals wrap up in the first round, you move on to the super regionals. So this is where, it really comes down to the nitty-gritty because the super regionals isn't double elimination format anymore. It's a best of three series. So in comparison to the majors, it's like the super regionals is both the wild card series and the league championship series. Like wild card series where now it becomes a best of three, where now you only have to win two games to make it to the College World Series. League Championship Series because after League Championship Series it's the World Series, and Super Regionals, like after Super Regionals it becomes a College World Series. So the field gets separated down to now 16 teams. And so just to give an example of this year's bracket, for Cal Poly, who won the Los Angeles regional, they're in the super regional and they're awaiting the winner of the Morgantown regional between West Virginia. So it comes down to the higher seed being the host of the super regional. So like there's no movement. It's not like you're playing one here or and you're playing a game there. No, like you're still staying in the same spot depending on who is predicted to be the host, but all just doing now is playing a best of three, and it becomes flipped. So say in the Texas Oregon Super Regional, Texas is going to be the home team one game, while the next game Oregon would be the home team, and then if it goes to a game three, then Texas would probably be the home team, just knowing that that's how they started. But
At the same
overall,
field. They don't go to Texas for that, right?
No, like, no, there's no back and forth between Austin
Right,
and
right,
UT.
right, right.
Like,
They don't have
they're
time for
most
that.
likely. Yeah, no, like, and, again, travel and everything, like, these budgets that college baseball programs have is just
Sure.
impossible. The main objective for teams in the super regional to be able to get to Omaha, they need to win 2 games.
And then is it regular season like seeding that puts you in the matchup to get when you get to super regionals? Like how do you get picked? Before the Austin and Eugene regional started, was it a match made that the winner of Austin was going to play the winner of Eugene? And then that was going to be the 3 game series. The winner goes to College World Series, or how did they match up Texas versus Oregon?
Yeah, so the funny thing is that the way that the Super Regional was set up based on the seeding, usually like the higher seed is more preferred. So like Texas, they were the sixth seed in the tournament, while Oregon was an 11th seed, and then a team like Georgia, who were the third overall seed, going up against Mississippi State, who were the 14th overall seed. Like the higher seed is going to have um more favorable as far as like location of the matchup. And an example of like if a team gets upsetted, like Cal Poly was able to do against St. Mary's, even with UCLA being the top seed. Now it comes down to whoever could win out. So who's ever going to win out in the other side of the bracket, they most likely will be the host because if you think about it too, like most college baseball programs don't have like these fancy upscale stadiums. So the NCAA probably also factors in facility size because again these super regionals are going to draw big crowds.
You wanna play the big games at the big league size ballparks, you don't wanna play in the minor like, who would play a wild card game in, a spring training size field? Like, you wanna optimize that, environment. Yeah, let's take a quick break, and then we'll dig into the College World Series real quick, we'll get into the rest of our stuff. All right, welcome back. We are here with Phillip Hall on the call. We are talking the road to the College World Series, clearing things up. We've covered the regionals, we've covered the super regionals, which is what we are going to get to by the end of the day today. There's a couple games that need to finish up. Yeah, so we talked about super regionals. Phillip, once you win that 3 game series, you win 2 of the 3 games in that super regionals, you make it to the College World Series where you go to Omaha. That is the neutral site
So, like, when you go to the College World Series, you're going to the Final Four in college basketball. Like, the only difference is it's now breaking down to the field of 8. So it's like a combination of you playing the Elite 8, the Final Four, and the national championship in the span of 10 days. And for anybody that's like a baseball fan, I feel like like something that you have to put on your bucket list, you have to go to the College World Series at least one time. Charles Schwab Field is the new stadium there now. But like it now comes down to the same format that it was in regional. So like it's double elimination format. Again, you lose 2 games, you're knocked out, and if you win through both the winners in the elimination bracket, it moves on to the semifinals. So winners of the semifinals in Omaha, it comes down to a winner take all best of 3 series to decide the national championship. So the final of the College World Series is once again super regional style, where it's the best of 3. You win 2 games, you're crowned the national champion.
That's wild. You have to play Elite Eight, Final Four, and the championship within 10 days.
Right. Yeah,
Talk
and
about challenging depth, man.
yeah, and again, these games are tough because what's interesting is that the like Charles Schwab Field, it's more well, it's pretty much a pro stadium. I believe the Kansas City Royals AAA team plays there most of the time when like there's nothing else when the term is not happening. So
Mhm.
like the field seems bigger by dimension, and it plays bigger too. Like you really have to be a dog to hit a home run out of there because the ball doesn't fly in Omaha as much as it would, in other places. I mean, like, like, you could go on YouTube and watch, like, all-time clips of, like, College World Series home runs, and you could just see, how big the field plays, and if you're a team that's not possessing a lot of power hitters, then you're pretty much playing to hit the ball in the gaps and also playing some small ball here and there. Because like the stage is much bigger. The play style is really going to be exposed in a way if you're playing. Because I remember last year when the surprise team that made it, Murray State, they had a run where they were trying to play against SEC teams. I believe the field last year you had Arkansas, LSU, Coastal Carolina, teams that are no known contenders, but also, these are teams that or like Murray State was a team that didn't really possess a whole lot of power, so they were playing to hit balls in the gaps and also were trusting in their pitching. And for them, they were going up against some first round guys, first round arms, I should say, where these you got guys throwing in the high 90s. I believe Arkansas they had this pitcher who threw the first no hitter, and I believe it was 40 years in the College World Series last year. And
Oh,
this
wow.
this guy yeah, this guy was pumping high 90s, and, like, he set a record in strikeouts too, like, in the game where he threw the no-hitter, but it was in a crucial time, though. So,
Right.
the lights are really shining on you, once you get to Omaha.
I had the honor of going to a College World Series game back when Oregon State won in 2018 with that stacked Adley
Yeah.
Rutschman, Trevor Larnach
Yeah.
squad. I was in there for a, baseball like an Omaha themed baseball tournament. We got a ticket to the game. It was game 2 of that game, and that was the most one of the most historic games in College World Series history. I mean, it was a crazy game, and there was the College World Series environment is awesome. Like, you have half the
Oh,
stadium in red and the other half in orange for Oregon State and Arkansas, and it was just like you could totally feel the Arkansas fans being who have not won a title, I don't believe. So they're trying to end a drought here. First time they've won it in the school's history. And they were a
oh.
strike away, game tying hit. And the Oregon State dugout practically emptied like they'd hit a walk off because they're greeting the guy who just crossed home. And electric, brand new ball game. Trevor Larnach comes up to bat. He's the next hitter, smokes a 2-run home run. The flip of momentum was so cool because when you're at that stadium, it doesn't take someone who's played baseball or watched a lot of baseball to know, like, that's a big field. Like you said, like the dimensions are like they don't lie. Like it's tough to hit it out, especially from compared to some of these ballparks. It was super cool to watch. Oregon State ended up pulling off the win in that game and then smoked Arkansas the next day to secure their title. So Arkansas still searching for that first College World Series title. But it's such a cool environment.
Yeah, and even to, like, the passion that these guys have, like, oh my
Totally.
god, like, Spencer, you know, for even, like, for, like, just a regular season game, like, I mean, these guys, they play to win, like, and, like, they bring so much energy, so much aggression to the field, like, and night in and night out to where they're just trying to claw and scratch because, you know, I'm not gonna say that, you know, it's a dog eat dog, like, on their team per se, but it's dog eat dog in, like, in their schedule, especially once they do
Yeah.
get to Omaha, because, like, you'll notice that a lot of these games, like, it just takes one good inning to really turn things around. Because what you'll notice in college baseball is that the one big inning that a team can have could really take out a team that's on the defeating end. Because like once a team gets that momentum and once they spark up a comeback, like they're just going full throttle the rest of the way.
With the Western Conference Finals just wrapping up between the Thunder and the Spurs, there was a post game clip of Jalen Williams who was hurt for most of the series, and he was talking about how it was tough to watch the whole series, especially with his team not making it to the finals. And there was a line there where he said, like they asked him like how he felt. He's like, you know what? They're a really good young team. We're a really good young team. Like we'll see each other down the road. For these players, sometimes you get four. I mean, like what? Maybe I mean with eligibility it gets wonky, but let's say like 4 or 5 years. Most of the time, that's not really with the same team. Some of these guys only get one chance at this. Like you get one shot. Like I don't know the history of UCLA the last couple of years, but Rock, like this
Oh,
was his shot to win it, really. This was the best UCLA team he's had, and, I'm not sure what class he is, but, like, even if he's a senior and he had, 3 more years prior prior to this, like, this was his shot, and, like, yeah, he's gonna go get drafted in the top 2 at least, probably 1, and probably have an excellent major league career, but this was a shot with his college guys to make a run for this kinda title. So there's a lot of passion that goes into it. And then on the flip side, if you're just like, you know what, uh, Cal Poly or St. Mary's, like we made it this far, we're not like content. I'm not saying that they're content with making it that far, but they're pretty proud of their season. I would say it's already a success. Let's go,
mm,
let's go play upset here. Like there's a lot of pride in that. So excellent point there. The passion is off the charts for all these kids, and it really plays out. Let's move on to we got a little fun blind ranking for you, Philip. We're gonna stay in the College World Series vibe. Philip, I've got five
mm.
schools that have punched their super regional ticket. And I've got an order here. I'm going to list one school at a time, and you have to rank that team 1 to 5. If you put a team third, you no longer can put that team in third. You only got 1, 2, 4, and 5. We all know how blind ranking works. Philip, this is your list based on how confident you are that that team will make it to the College World Series. One of the last two teams here. Okay. All right,
Alright.
Philip, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
You locked in? Okay. Done this once before, and it was a decent list. Did it for City Connect baseball jerseys. Your first team is a team that hosted a regional. It's the Oregon Ducks.
Ooh, man, already starting off of a
Big,
hard one
big
there.
name. Yeah.
Yeah, like, to me, Oregon's been one of those teams that I feel like is due for a trip to Omaha, and, for them to match up against Texas, I think that's gonna be a real fun series. But in regards to them making it, we're starting off with, just 1, right? No particular order, just
Correct.
going
One through
in?
five. Yep.
Yeah, so for me, I'll have to put Oregon. I say, 4. I'm gonna put them at 4.
Okay, 4. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Leaving that 5 spot open for another team you think is less likely to make it, but you still got that top 3. Okay. Your next team is Georgia,
Mm.
the Bulldogs.
Yeah, I mean, no pun intended, but yeah, Georgia does have some dogs this year on the team. Trey Phelps. I mean, yeah, you see that kid hit. He's definitely been crushing it in the region. Like, Georgia. I mean, they have just annihilated opponents with the bats this year. It's crazy. But again, like I go back to talking about slugger. You're a slugger. Like Georgia, most likely Georgia's looking at you. So for them. I'm gonna put them right above Oregon, so, they're my number
3.
3.
Okay. You got 1 and 2 open as well as that 5 spot. Your next one, known for their hoops, the Kansas Jayhawks.
Mm. Whew, like I say hands down, best story in college baseball this year, especially when you talk about the impact that the transfer portal can have in college baseball because most of those guys on Kansas, they're JUCO D2, D3 transfers. And sometimes you find those diamonds in the rough
That's
and
awesome.
like I feel like people like nowadays they sleep too much on the JUCO landscape because you could really find an impact player in that landscape of college baseball. But for Kansas, you know, thinking about who they could match up against in their super, like it's going to come down between Georgia Tech and Oklahoma. Again, this is as of today. Uh, it's gonna be tough, man. But I say if I were to give them a shot, like they're gonna be my 5.
Ooh, they're 5. Okay, so we got the Jayhawks at 5. We've got Oregon at 4 and the slugging Georgia Bulldogs at 3. So you have 1 and 2 left open. Your next team is Little Rock.
Wow. Yeah, Cinderella.
Talk about a
You know,
Cinderella.
yeah. Little Rock to me is the for sure Cinderella. And I know every year, like in the College World Series, there's always going to be that one Cinderella team. For Little Rock, oh man, and I can't change it either, huh?
No, gotta throw in
Okay, yeah,
that
I
too.
guess yeah, we're gonna be locked. Yeah, yeah, they're my number 2 because yeah, it's I think they have a for sure shot. It's going to be a tough road, especially if they have to play either Florida or Troy.
Yeah.
Something's telling me that Florida's going to win out in their regional to play Little Rock, but yeah, Little Rock is going to be my number 2.
Okay,
It's just
Little
like
Rock.
they're in there. Yeah.
Right. Your last one is UT, University of Texas.
Oh, yeah, Texas for yeah, they're a
Yeah.
clear favorite. Like,
Yeah.
and also like even say this too, Spencer, because I came up with this new term, and this dates back to me watching my St. John's Red Storm in college
I love it.
basketball, trying to make it to the well, they fell in the Sweet 16, unfortunately, but like this new term that I came up with was, we talk about Cinderellas. Well, I want to talk about the Contenderella because I have a Contenderella
Ah,
in the College World Series this year. So my Contenderella and that like they made the top 5 lists. Yeah, I think this year Oregon's my Contenderella because
love it.
like when you think about Oregon historically, like, yeah, like they're now coming into the fold as a college baseball, not so much a powerhouse, but a team that you want to see win. They, in a way, they're like the Thunder to me. Like, not the Thunder that just got knocked out by the Spurs, but like the Thunder from last year that, people were thinking, man, this team is due for a big run. And, Thunder got it
Mhm.
done. I feel like Oregon is that team that's due. And like they've had chances where they've made super regionals in the past, but just fell short. Sometimes it was from a team that was a Cinderella, and other times it was from a team that people thought they should have beat, but couldn't get it done. So like Oregon's my Contenderella to not only make it to Omaha, but to possibly try to win it all.
Okay. Oregon. Keep your eye on the Ducks. They had a good hoop season. Looking to continue that on the diamond. Let's take a quick break and we'll dive into our last segments: underdogs and notable draft prospects. All right, welcome back. We are wrapped up the College World Series breakdown a bit, but let's dive into the favorites to win it and the underdogs. We are recording this on June 1st, so there are some of the final regional matchups finishing up to get the full list of all the teams that have punched their ticket to super regionals. So if this will probably come out when all those games have been finalized. So some of these teams we might breeze over, talk about real quick, even if they are eliminated. So keep that in mind if you are listening at a later date. But Philip, let's start with the underdogs. What is one of your favorite underdogs, and could you compare that team to a major league team so we have a better grip on what kind of club this is?
Hmm. So in regards to like a underdog, I'd say like people right now, like they're like, for teams that are still alive, USC, and USC, like for those that don't know, like they have the most national championships in all of college baseball. They like they're not the Yankees. Like I won't say that, but they are like comparison to the Cardinals, because
Mm.
the Cardinals, they're a team with the most well, they're the nationally team with the most World Series won. But USC, they're really stuck in tradition and value, just like how the St. Louis Cardinals do, like in regards to just fan base and history over time. So USC are like the Cardinals to me.
Okay, I like that. I like that. Yeah, Cardinals, very historic franchise, but probably in like rebuild years right now. But also, they're second in the NL Central right now, so they're already exceeding expectations. Very similar to USC, who got bounced a couple times in pretty rough ways by UCLA, which their season did not age as well as they had hoped. But all right, what about one of your favorites, Philip?
Yeah, so favorites, Texas. Now, so for Texas, it won't be a comparison to them. Like, so Texas are pretty much like the Yankees. Like they've had the most ever College World Series appearances. I believe the tally right now is at 38, could be 39, depending on how the Super Regional plays out for them. But yeah, but Texas, they've had, dogs like throughout the years. Like Roger Clemens came out of Texas. Brandon Belt, for all the Giants fans out there, he's a Texas guy. So, Texas, like they've had strong teams like just about every year, and especially with them now being in the SEC. And and to be honest, I think that's what's made it hard for LSU to try to win out again, because with Texas being moving from the Big 12 to the SEC and this new era that they're in, like they've had a stronghold on the conference, because top dog teams in the SEC has always either been Vandy, Ole Miss, LSU, even Arkansas. Like they've had some years where they were the front runners, but yeah, Texas are like the Yankees, and even like the brand of Texas themselves, like Hook 'em,
Right.
see the Longhorn, yeah. So like the Texas brand has always had a mainstay in college baseball, and the expectations are always high for that program down in Austin.
Let's do give me one more and then we'll go into some prospects.
All right, I'll give you a good one here. Actually, I think people might like this one.
Okay.
Miami, they like the Hurricanes. You can compare them to the Braves.
Ah.
Yeah, and I'll explain why. So Miami, like they've had some really good teams in the past, and even have produced like some big time players. And even just the reputation of Miami as like a school, like not so much with football and everything, but like Miami, they've had some teams where it felt like, you knew that they're a team that you feared, but at the same time, they just sometimes couldn't get it right in certain moments.
Mm.
Because Miami, like with the expansion of the ACC, and like teams like Stanford and Cal coming in, like they've had like some down years as of late. I think, now they're kind of trying to get back to a level of where they're like, oh, like we need to be winning championships, because they haven't won a College World Series since '01.
Mm.
But like but they know that they're a program that's always had, the talent and can show it. Like they're going to be a front runner. Like because when you think about the alumni that's come out of Miami, like Ryan Braun, he went to Miami. Yes, Monty Grandal, uh, Pat Burrell. Again, Giants fans,
Yep.
you remember Pat Burrell from the 2010 team, but but yeah, like Miami, like they're to me, they're the Braves only because, for the Braves fans, like strong fan base, always high expectations, especially being in playing in a tough division like the National League East. Well, at least it's tough now with, the Phillies and the Mets kind of, trying to hover around them, trying to knock them down. But same could be said for Miami being in the ACC. ACC, in my opinion, is the toughest conference in college baseball next to the SEC, but, Miami to me are the Braves.
Right, and you would know that 'cause you called games for Stanford, who is now in the ACC, and you got to see a lot of those teams come to the Sunken Diamond.
Yeah, 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 like, actually, I was fortunate enough to call a game when Stanford did play in Miami when they came out here,
Mm,
and even Miami, like, as we're gonna transfer, segue into talking about the prospects, like, there's gonna be some steals, in the draft, or, like, Miami does have some pro prospect that I consider to be a steal in the draft that aren't really getting much notoriety when it comes to mock drafts or certain prospect rankings. But yeah, Miami's going to have some guys get picked this year.
let's transition over to the draft. We've already mentioned the probably consensus number 1 overall pick, Rock
Yeah.
Chalowski, going to number 1 to the Chicago White Sox. Obviously, there's some high school names on here. We can let's stay on the college level. Who's a prospect that has just jumped off the page with their game, how they play? And then if you could give us a comparison to someone at the pro level, past, present, doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like, would you want to start off with a pitcher or a position player?
Let's go arm. Let's go arm. Talk a lot about hitting. Let's go arm.
Oh, okay. All right, bet. Um, so I would say for a pitcher, like one guy that's stand out to me, and I haven't really been able to watch a lot of him, but I've read a lot about him.
Okay.
And actually, this is our guy at the Legends, Gabe Estevez. He talks a lot about this guy, Jackson Flora.
Yeah.
Jackson Flora, he's a right-handed arm out of UC Santa Barbara. This year he had a 3.60 ERA, 86 strikeouts, and 75 innings pitched. He's a strike thrower. He's a guy that's gonna like a lot, like not so much light up the radar gun, but he's gonna get outs and work to get teams to win. More of a he's probably gonna be projected to be mid rotation, like when and if he does get to the majors, because right now Flora, he's projected to go number 5. Again, like in my mock draft, and my mock draft listing is based off of what ESPN and mock draft is. So like this add credibility there. But Jackson Flora is projected to go number 5 to the Pirates, and like the Pirates, like they're really built. I'm starting to take them more serious now in regards to them building for the future, because Jackson Flora could be Logan Webb's answer to the Pirates.
Mhm.
That's my comparison. So, like, you compare it to like a Logan Webb in regards to what he could bring to the table, especially you put him in that Pirates rotation with Paul Skeens, Bubba Chandler's gonna be coming up, and they even the other kid Hernandez, who's coming with the Pirates, top prospect with the Pirates. So yeah, Flora could be in that rotation. I say maybe in 2 years.
Yeah, especially on the college track, right? So he doesn't need as much time to kind of adapt and work his way through the minors. He could probably start at Double A after. I could see him, like you said, after a couple starts, finding himself in Triple A by the end of this minor league season to start next season, and then depending on how he does there, he could even make the join his teammate Paul Skeens if he gets selected to Pittsburgh and make that fast track to the big leagues. And then all of a sudden, the Pittsburgh Pirates have by far the most scariest rotation in baseball, and they're all going to be none of them will have touched their 27th birthday, maybe even 26th. If
Yeah,
that's fast, because Seth Hernandez, as you mentioned that name, he has been on a heater. He's a high school pick from last year, so he's got a few more years, I think Flora will beat him to the big leagues if he's taken by the Pirates. But he will be that rotation is gonna be frightening.
Yeah, and I even say this too, like, because you bring up a point there too, Spencer. Like when I think about the draft and when I compare, say, like a top pitcher coming out of high school compared to a pitcher coming out of college, like the to me, the college pitchers are more easier to work with because their development time is not as long as a high school arm is. Seth Fernandez being, a guy fresh out of high school, Corona High School in California, his projection and his time frame to get to the majors is probably going to take some because depending on man and depending on like where you were picked coming out if you were a high school arm, like I think major league franchises or a major league organization is going to give you more of a development rate and development program than they would for a college arm. Because for a program like UC Santa Barbara, who historically has picked or has developed, guys that have gone first round, like when it comes to pitchers, they just know like with the program that Jackson Flores is coming from, you know. They know, like, hey, like we know how they do things at UC Santa Barbara, and same can be said about other programs that produce top arms. But yeah, Jackson Flora, his time frame, his ETA to the majors is going to be much shorter than would for Seth Fernandez. But keep in mind that that Pirates organization or that Pirates pitching staff, and say the next 3 to 4 years is going to be looking tough, man.
Which might give the Pirates more incentive to be patient with Hernandez if they already have Flora on his rookie year. They have Skeen still there. Jared Jones has some health issues, but he's there. They have Braxton Ashcraft, who's been awesome this month. He just made the Rewinds Team of the Month of May. Go check that out on the Instagram. But so they might be. You could be more patient, right? You'd sound like they need him immediately, so that's another incentive. All right, what about in the box? What about one of the hitters that has caught your eye at the college level, Philip?
So I say one guy, and like I think this going to be a very hitterish
Okay.
draft this year. But like the one guy that I would point out, and even though it's a toss up between these two because both of these guys go to the same school, but if I were to have to pick one, it would have to be Drew Burris out of Georgia Tech.
Yeah.
And yeah, Drew Burris, man, that kid's got some serious pop. I mean, this year I think he hit 14 home runs, and even he's more of like kind of like a middle or like pop at the top kind of guy. You could pretty much put him anywhere in the lineup. And the surprising fact about him, he's not that big of a guy either. Like he's a 5'9", 185 center fielder, hits on the right side of the plate, but his career at Georgia Tech, I mean, he has shown probably like freshman year with the Yellow Jackets, 25 home runs. I think he might have led the ACC in that category that year. 19 home runs last year as a sophomore. He's got 15 this year with the updated stats, and he's also a guy that can hit for high average, 361. He's batting this year, and I mean, like as far as like a pro comparison. I'm just thinking of like short guys that that get hit for pop. Like I would say he's more probably like a Mookie Betts, in
Mm,
regards to, the kind of power that he does bring to the plate and like, high like, high batting average, even though like, Mookie's been kind of having, like a couple of down years, batting average isn't the same as it was like when he was playing in Boston or like when he first went to the Dodgers. But, Drew Burris, like depending on how the defense could come through, like in Mookie Betts' like tenure when he was a full-time outfielder before the Dodgers decided to move him to the infield.
mhm.
Yeah, I could say he's the best comparison to him.
Yeah, not a big guy, as you mentioned. 5'9", 185 is what Baseball Reference has him listed as, and 25 bombs in a college season is no joke. Getting on base almost half the time with the 512 OBP is ridiculous. He's a guy that Gabe and we know Gabe is also a former guest on the show, and as we know, he's big into all the prospects. So we've gone back and forth over text about prospects as the season's continued. You know, you get different highlights from different guys. You know, Volnaki's a guy we'll probably talk about. He just hit a ball almost 500 feet the other day,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so draft stocks are constantly flipping. Was Jackson Four another guy we talked about, but Drew Burress, like we talk about in other sports, you can trade back, right? It's very popular in football or basketball, trade back. We were saying, man, if we could trade back, like there's a lot of great talent 1 through 4. But man, to trade back to like 7 or 6 and just pick a guy like Drew Burress and maybe gain another pick later on or something, or get next year's for something like that, like that would have been icing on the cake because Burris is only going is only going to get probably selected past 5 because there's
Mhm.
so much top weight in this draft class. I mean, we talked about Rock, who's gonna go number 1, even though there's some talk about slot value. There's
Mm.
other guys like you've got Emerson, Flora, who's gonna go up there, and a lot of high school guys too that are get mixed up here. A lot of teams like those high school guys that we kind of forget about in a couple years. Boom, they're in like top 5. So,
Right.
yeah, Burris
And
is
yeah,
a loud one.
because you know, based on what ESPN says, you know, Grady Emerson is projected to go number 2, and again, like, this is like, these are like, both the White Sox and the Rays are gonna have their hands full deciding, "Okay, do we wanna go with a high school shortstop
Right.
if the college shortstop doesn't get or excuse me, if do you wanna go with the college shortstop if the high school shortstop doesn't get picked first, or do we wanna go or vice versa?" And, you know, for Drew Burris, you know, he's so far down the list, like, because you know, ESPN has a projecting to go number 9 to the Braves, but you know, you think about the center fielder that's in front of him, you know, there's only one. It's Eric Booth Jr., who's a high school center fielder projected to go number 7 to Baltimore. But, you know, you just think like, again, like, what are you gonna wanna take more time to develop? Are you gonna wanna take more time to develop a high school guy, especially if you're speaking on behalf of the Orioles, who have the right pieces to get, things going to make a run, but at the same time, though, like, like, in recent years, they've drafted top high school prospects who are still, trying to fully develop as, like, major league guys instead of, you know, the quote unquote four-egg players, like guys that are going back and forth between majors and triple A.
Mhm,
And, you know, like for the Braves, they're going to be set. Like they have their pieces ready to go. And I think, you know, especially for the hometown pick, Georgia Tech being in Atlanta, of course, you know, it's going to be a hometown pick if they do decide to get Burris before anybody else does. And so, you know, but like, you know, putting him in that outfield in Atlanta, I think, you know, Drew Burris, he could be the hometown guy. And historically, that's what the Braves have developed. You know, they like homegrown guys. They like to
mhm.
develop, you know, make them into fan favorites, and Drew Burris could be that for the Braves.
And, ESPN even mentioned in their little, um, little paragraph or 2 on each player that they mocked to, each team. Burris was drafted by the Braves out of high school, in a past draft, so they've already got some ties to him if he falls to them at 9. Philip, let's do 1 or 2 more. Give me one more, give me another player, that you like in this draft with the comp.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I like to. I think for this one, I'm gonna go down to my steals list. So
Yeah.
these are the guys that, you know, don't usually get a lot of buzz when you look at a mock draft list. But, you know, like I wanna go through a pretty couple here, and I'll keep it traditionally with the picking one position player and one pitcher. So, start with the pitchers, and, you know, me being a guy that was a lefty, when he played, you know, like being a left-handed pitcher and all that, and, when I was a player. I gotta go with, my guy out of Oklahoma, Cameron Johnson. Left-handed arm, and Spencer, you might get a kick out of this, but I like to call this guy Baby CC because and it's a dead
Okay.
giveaway to who my pro comparison is to him, because he's got a CC Sabathia body with a CC Sabathia play style, on the mound. Like 6'6", 256, big dude that throws hard. And, like this year for Oklahoma, he had 7 wins, 72 strikeouts, left-handed arm, like that's gonna, like get stronger with time. And I think it really just all comes down to him getting the right development in regards to, him being an arm that could bring value to an organization. And him being the size that he is, like again, I bring up the CC Sabathia comparison because CC being a guy that was a high school guy, that threw hard, it just all come down to him getting the right development because Cameron Johnson for the times that I've been able to see him this year, he could throw strikes. He's gonna get guys out, and also he's gonna bring he could bring something to the table, and for a team that's looking for, an intimidating lefty, Cameron Johnson could be that guy. Like, if I were to project him to where he could get picked, even though he's not listed as a first rounder, I could see him getting picked up maybe 3rd or 4th round,
Mm,
per se, just knowing like how like the other college pitchers that are in front of him in the draft, but he's listed as a 166. He's listed 166 in the top 200 draft prospect on MLB. So there is some buzz around him
okay.
with him being draft eligible.
Well, as you mentioned, it's a heavy bat uh, prospect pool to start, which can really you can really lose sight of a lot of awesome arms in a draft when stuff like that happens. Very similar in the NFL when there's a lot of really intriguing quarterback prospects. A lot of those skill position or trench position linebacker or yeah, like D line, offensive lineman could kind of fall in the draft because you want that prize shortstop or that prize. In this draft, you have a couple shortstops that go early, a couple high school prospects, so you can lose sight of those arms. So usually those major draft pools, those really really big names in a draft, there's a lot of guys that can get taken in the late rounds. Good pick. All right, last one. You've gone pitcher, hitter, pitcher. Give me a hitter to close this out here, Philip.
Yeah, it's a tough list, because I'll just like give you the list before I give you like my main pick, but I'll just Will Gasparino, outfielder with UCLA. I feel like he kind of gets overshadowed because of Rock Chalowski, but he was one of my picks. Trey Phelps, third baseman at Georgia, you know, like solid power here. He's been crushing it in the regionals, but my primary pick that I think not a lot of people kind of sleep on is Daniel Cuvée, who's a third baseman that plays for Miami. And for me, guy that like me covering Stanford and getting a chance to watch Miami come out here to the Bay Area to play against Stanford this year. I mean, from what I saw from this kid, it shocked me to see how low he was on the top draft list because you know third base and in my opinion I think is a very valuable position where you could like because like when I think about like cornerstone players when it comes to building a dynasty. The key positions that you really have to dial in on is shortstop, third base, and catcher. Like those are the kind of guys that could build World Series champions. And for Daniel Cuvée being a third baseman on Miami, like big guy for a third baseman too, 6'3", 240. I mean, I don't think I've seen a third baseman have that kind of weight before. And like he had a pretty good season where he hit 305, had 12 home runs, 45 RBIs. It was kind of a down year for him, only because when he got to Miami, and like, I'll pull up some of his earlier stats,
Mhm.
like in his the first years with the Canes. Like he had 24 home runs his freshman year, 18 home runs sophomore year, and even when you talk about summer ball play, the Cape Cod League, which is where a lot of big major league prospects go to play summer ball at, he had 6 home runs and 20 RBIs, batting 314 in the Cape in 2024. This was like right after his freshman year. And player count to me, for him being the kind of gap here that he is, he's like a prime Nolan Arenado. So,
Mm.
a team could be getting a steal with Daniel Cuvée and could be getting possibly like a guy like if we were to rewind the clock back on Nolan Arenado's career, Daniel Cuvée could be that guy for a major league team.
Nolan Arenado, just talk about a highlight reel, man. To get another one of those guys in the league would be super sweet. Daniel Cuvée will definitely have to keep our tabs on him. Listeners, Philip and I will be in the booth all summer long at Baylands baseball field. We'll be calling, or Philip will be on the play-by-play. I will be making my broadcast debut on color commentary. I'm very excited for this summer with Philip, who's been calling games as we mentioned in the beginning of the show. His resume is off the charts with all sorts of uh, broadcasting experience. But yeah, we're going to be covering games. Make our debut Wednesday night at Baylands Field. So if you can, come and visit. If not, be sure to check out my socials and Philip's socials for the links to those games on what is that, the 3rd? On the
Yeah, yeah,
3rd,
yeah,
and then I believe
Wednesday,
on
June 3rd,
and then you can
opening
also
day.
catch us next week on the 9th and the 10th, back-to-back games against the Stompers and the Blues. Philip, what is the best way to track all your progress, follow all your games, all your calls?
Yeah, so on Instagram, my username is at PVR Hall. So P first as like my first name Philip, V as in Victor, R as in Richard, then my last name Hall, all HALL, all one word. Same on Twitter, at PVR Hall. That's usually where I like to post my updates from when I'm doing a broadcast somewhere, or even if I'm like trying to highlight, do a player highlight or something. And even on you can subscribe to me on YouTube. YouTube channel is just my name, Phillip Hall. I post vlogs up there. I post some of my broadcast work from the past up there. So that's forms of where people could follow me. Just launched my broadcast portfolio. That's Phillip Hall on the call.com. Well, if you go to Google and type in Phillip Hall on the call, like my name's gonna pop up. So yeah, just launched that recently. That's another place where I put up my broadcast work and even some of the social media work I've done. So check out my site. Just go to Google, type in Phillip Hall on the call. Link should pop up right there as well.
Philip is one of the most persistent, motivated, does his homework more than anyone I think I've been around in the business. Excellent broadcaster. He knows his way around the game. So be sure to follow his work. Philip, thank you so much for being on the Rewind. It was great to get you on. We'll bring you back, maybe recap what went down from here on out with the college baseball world. Maybe we'll talk about the draft once that's completed as well. We will talk about all the guys you mentioned, but I really appreciate you being on, Philip. For listeners, you guys already know this is your first episode. Thank you for tuning in. You can find all of my post graphics, episode clips, episode highlights on Instagram at the rewind underscore pod. You can follow me on Twitter for live updates on my calls this summer and some of the other stuff that I post in the rewind at Spencer J Tracy 19 Tracy. Or you can check us out on YouTube if you want to watch Philip and I talk through this episode, but you want to see our faces while we talk about college baseball. You can go either at the Rewind, the number 3, at the Rewind 3, or at the Rewind podcast with Spencer Tracy. Either of those work. We're also on Spotify and Amazon Music, which I know few of you have, but Spotify at the Rewind underscore or at the Rewind podcast with Spencer Tracy. Thank you all for listening. It's been a really fun 37 episodes. Thank you, Philip, for being on. It was awesome to talk college baseball for the first time. And I will see you all on the next episode.